Yo, what's good everybody? It's me, Uchiha, and I'm back for another video, guys. What if Asta had the Sharingan episode 1? If you guys don't already know, these episodes will be compilations of parts, usually up to 3, but sometimes this can change, and they are usually 25-minute long videos, which for me, I have to write, revise, record, and audio edit all this by myself, and I also have to video edit it. It is really time consuming and hard, so leaving a like would be very appreciated. It would be appreciated more than you even know. Anyway guys, I'm sorry for taking up your time. Let's get into the videos. What if Asta had the Sharingan Part 0? Retcon. So I'm gonna be getting some retconning in some bits for Part 0, where instead of Asta just randomly getting the Sharingan, we're gonna say that someone in the Black Clover universe ate a chakra fruit. This fruit would allow them to do amazing things, like magic. We're also gonna say that the Black Clover universe is very old. So old, in fact, that the chakra fruit that the person ate mutated in the human genome to match the lives of the ever-evolving species. What was once used for jutsu branched out and mutated, turning into different forms and different abilities, from Genkai abilities like chain magic to basic nature transformations. What was once chakra morphed into mana, and somewhere along the way, humans and the other species such as elves found a way of instead weaving complicated hand signs. They just wrote down their jutsu. They wrote their jutsu down in books and used them in that way. We can see evidence of this working in the Naruto universe, with some people using scrolls to cast their jutsu. People of Black Clover universe perfected these scroll casting jutsus and found a way to work these into their grimoire system. Asta, who was already born with the mutation of having no mana, would gain the ability of the Sharingan through mutation, as he was a direct descendant of the person who first ate the chakra fruit. His magic would not be sensed by anyone because it wasn't the evolved and changed mana he had flowing through him. It was a much more simple and rudimentary chakra he had. It gave him his energy, so no one could read it. He would gain his Sharingan and perfect it to the point of being able to activate it upon will. However, he would be ashamed for it. It was crazy looking, and the people of Hage were frightened by it, as they were just a small village, causing him to become an even bigger outcast in the original. Every time he would walk into the small village, people would whisper things like, "There he goes, that kid, the one with the eyes, the demon child." Due to the unfair way people of the village saw Asta, he exiled himself to the Hage forest, where he would spend most of his days training his ocular ability. It was the one place where Asta felt like he could really be himself. While training, Asta learned how to maneuver using the Sharingan as a boost to his overall senses, not just his vision. And he realizes when he had the Sharingan activated, he not only felt his eyes get better, but he felt more focused. He was stronger, faster, and smarter when his Sharingan was activated. He learned how to run through trees and found out through falling off them multiple times that he could channel what he thought was this weird feeling of energy inside him to his feet, allowing him to walk up trees and defy gravity. Yuno would join him on one of these trips to the forest, where their bond would grow even more than the original. Yuno was the only one who wasn't freaked out by Asta. He was the only one who cared for him besides Sister Lily and the rest of the people at the church. They would train together and they would camp out in the forest, where they started to see each other as more than just close friends. Asta and Yuno were brothers. They may not have blood, but they were the closest that either of them would get to having a family, and rightfully, they became blood brothers in that forest and promised each other they would compete to become the Wizard King. Everything else from this point onwards is like I explained. Asta beats down the chain mage and walks away unscathed in the encounter, where from then he would go on back to Hage village, and he and Yuno would head into the forest together, telling Sister Lily that they would be back soon. They would disappear for 6 months. The two would live off the land together and train to increase their powers, and Yuno and Asta would split up around halfway through their time together to get stronger apart and meet up once the Magic Knight's entrance exam would start in Hage village. Asta would still meet Finzo Senpai. I wish I could go in depth into what changes exactly due to Asta's abilities and all the cool fights and stuff, but I want to advance the plot, so I'm going to simplify the scenario as much as possible. Asta meets Finzo, but this time due to Asta's much more melancholy personality because of the fact that he was ostracized by the people of Hage, he doesn't strike Finzo's eye as much. Finzo is hesitant to teach one other student because Asta, he's really just not that Asta that he was in the canon, until Asta comments about becoming the Wizard King, and he shows Fenzo what he was capable of, challenging Fenzo to a battle which Fenzo loses in. Of course, Fenzo wasn't going like 100%, but he wasn't exactly taking it easy on Asta either. But through sheer tenacity and clever use of his abilities, Asta wins, and Fenzo goes on teaching him swordsmanship. Everything past this point would be pretty much the same, except Asta would have a little more easier time against some of these enemies he would face, as having the Sharingan was basically just like having Ki from Black Clover, but just a little bit better. He would return to Hage Village at the end of the 6 months in a new form. He was built different in both skill set and physical appearance. Sister Lily and everyone else were surprised, but to them he was still Asta. To the people of Hage, the weird monster kid just got stronger, but at this point they were used to it. Asta and Yuno met up outside the church once Yuno returns, and they exchange words. They say, "Asta, I hope you got stronger." "Of course I did, brother." They then gather their things up for the last time and say goodbye to the church. Magic Knight's exams, here they come. Anyway guys, that's the end of part 0. Before I start part 1, I want to tell you guys about the brand new Big Ichitako RP server that is open now. Be mindful that the server isn't quite finished. It's in what we in there like to call a beta, but you can hop in and go off from there, where you'll be taken to the gates of hell and either die a tragic death or get sentenced to eternal damnation. Or you can be reborn as a demon and climb your way up through the ranks until you become the king of hell. The server has a lot of bots and active admins who try their best to help you create your new life in hell. But since the server is very new and still needs some kinks worked out in it, only the first 15 people who click that link in the description will be allowed in the server. Anyway guys, on to the next part. What if Asta had the Sharingan part 1? We move towards the Magic Knight's entrance exams. Everything pertaining to the events that happen are the same, but Asta, due to his new Uchiha-like personality, will not even try to do any of the events pertaining to magic. Like for example, when everyone would try to ride a broom, Asta would just stand in the corner with his arms crossed, looking up at the captains, kinda in a threatening way. Seke would still look at Asta and choose him even though everyone else just saw him as a threat. No one could sense his magical powers, but the vibe he was giving off was very scary and made Asta feel dangerous. Everyone else assumed that Asta was hiding his magical abilities. Yuno went on putting on an impressive display, while Asta on the other hand would stand tall, having his eyes fixated on the goal he came here to accomplish, to become a Magic Knight. One of the captains he was looking at was going to choose him. Asta had that feeling deep down inside of his heart. Whichever Magic Knight squad team he went on to, he would try his hardest to become the Wizard King. Nothing was going to stop him in his job. Nothing. Ever. Nothing was going to stop him from accomplishing his dream. Now the one-on-one combat rounds came around, and it was time for Asta to finally show what he was capable of. This wasn't something that pertained to magic, so Asta could really get his chance in and shine. Nobody was going to take that away from him, and nobody could even contest with his power here except for Yuno. Asta knew that. Everyone else was teaming up and partnering up and all that stuff. Asta initially wanted to go against Yuno because he felt that if he was going against Yuno, he could really show all these other Magic Knights what he could do and really go 100%. But it seems that his brother had found a partner, and Asta was left partnerless. That's when Seke would come around out of nowhere, and he would offer Asta the chance to be his partner. The memories would begin now. Everyone thought, Seke? He chooses a guy with no mana? And everyone was scared of him, but they realized that's probably the safest bet. He's a peasant, and the general idea shifted from this guy was scary to this guy doesn't even belong here. A lowly peasant from Hage who has no mana or magic abilities whatsoever. Why were they scared in the first place? Everyone in the crowd started to think. I wish I had chosen him, they started to think again. Asta would overhear all this, all the murmurs, and all the thoughts that everybody was having, and before the match would start, Asta would be approached by Seke, who said, "Thanks, you peasant, for making me look good." Asta wouldn't say anything. He would just look up at Seke with a glare that could freeze a man dead in his tracks. He would grit his teeth and walked away towards his side of the arena. Asta wasn't even mad at Seke or the people who were making fun of him. He was now just pumped. This was the first step he was going to take towards becoming the Wizard King. He was going to show out. He didn't get to do anything all day, so his energy was saved. While Yuno was hogging the spotlight, Asta was preparing for this very moment. Yes, he thought, I can finally show what I was capable of. I can finally go all out. The match would begin with Seke, just like in canon, creating a shield bubble and hiding in it, waiting for Asta to attack. Asta would let his grimoire come up to him slowly. He looked up once again at the captains. Asta then refocused. He activated his Sharingan, got in his stance, and burst off just like in canon, but this time, even faster and even more explosive. The burst that he made created a large crater in the ground. His power level was probably twice that of what he was in the original right now, because he was training from a younger age, and with his Sharingan, it really helps him focus better and get the full potential of his strength out. So he one-shot Seke, but this time he was faster and stronger. Seke wasn't just knocked out, he had his shoulder ripped out of place, and it may never even be the same again. The crowd immediately quieted down. His eyes, his demeanor, his stance. Everybody in the crowd could feel his aura without even sensing his mana. It's very similar to what Captain Yami does, when you can just feel his ki and feel how strong he is without even sensing his mana. Asta had that, but he just had this red aura instead of a purple one like Captain Yami. Everyone was stunned. Whew, this was crazy. Asta now jumped up from probably not even being considered to become a Magic Knight to having the intriguance of all the captains. Everything else pertaining to all the 1v1s goes like in canon. Yuno still shows out and still is the first one to be, chosen by all the captains. But Asta, on the other hand, still has no captains putting up their hand for him. He's just standing there. Even when his name's called to go over and just get out the way, he's still there, clenching his fist, looking up at the captains, just waiting for one of them to choose him. That's when Captain Yami jumps down, just like in canon, with that crazy aura, and comes to talk to Asta. He asked Asta, "Why didn't you participate in any of the other events except for the 1v1? Asta would say, "Because I don't have any magic." This would be to a surprise to all the captains, to everybody in the crowd, to everybody that participated. It would be a surprise to everyone that Asta had no magic. He said, "My power is anti-magic. I can deflect and reflect any form of magic that comes towards me. But I myself have no magic, so I'm not able to ride on brooms or any stupid stuff like that. But what I am able to do is good enough. I should be a Magic Knight, and I know it." Captain Yami just laughs and says, "Hey kid, you're on a squad." And that's how Asta joins the Black Bulls in this What If universe. Asta would finally get to meet his new Captain Yami. Asta and Captain Yami prepared to leave, but before he and Asta left, Asta had to talk to Yuno. Yuno had just finished talking to his new squad captain as well, and Asta approached him. "Brother!" "Yes, Asta, we've done it." "Yeah, we have. Let's see which one of us becomes Wizard King." Asta and Yuno then have a hug, which would be their last. They were no longer just brothers now. Asta and Yuno were each other's biggest rivals. "I'll see you when I see you, later." Asta then walked away. Wizard King, here he comes. Guys, that's the end of part 1. I don't really want to take up you guys' time, so let's get straight into part 2. Asta would still be introduced to the squad a lot like in canon. I would love to go in depth into this battle against his senpai, but I can't due to time constraints, so I'm gonna try my best to simplify the plot, but I will try to give you guys a nice fight scene. What if Asta had the Sharingan part 2? Basically, as Asta's fighting his senpai, Asta would try his best to maneuver and use his powers. Asta in this What If did know that he could deflect because he would be training a lot earlier, like I said, and he would be training a lot harder due to his newfound focus with the ability of his Sharingan. And with his Sharingan, it would be really easy for him to dodge those baseball-like attacks he was getting from his senpai. He would weave, dodge, weave, and he was kind of messing around with his senpai, causing his senpai to get even more serious with him. This battle would escalate in terms of seriousness. It wouldn't just be, senpai touring around with, his new junior. It would be something that was more akin to a real competition between rivals, even causing his other senpai to join in. So that was 2 versus 1 against Asta, lightning and fire, fighting against this one anti-magic kid. Asta tried his best keeping up with them both and deflecting them both. Yami was so impressed by this kid, using his Sharingan to dodge only on one Tomoe as well. It was crazy. Asta, however, was getting pushed back, as having both of these powerful Magic Knights on him was really getting to him. So he would try his best, and they would both charge up for their final attacks. Like in canon, we all know that Asta senpai with the fire bat final attack is crazy, and we all know that lightning attack, that bow, that's on another level. So they would both charge that up and come against Asta. Asta, he would deactivate his Sharingan in preparation for his brand new final attack as well. Asta with determination in his final attack would scream, "I'm gonna become Wizard King!" And with that, he sliced through those attacks. Captain Yami intervened at the last second, chopping down both Asta and his seniors in a great fashion. Captain Yami had stopped a massive clash that could have probably wiped both 3 of them out. So yeah, everything like in turning to, Asta having to deal with all the chores in the house, Noel, everything like that pretty much goes like in canon. Asta would really have a lot easier time, but he wouldn't be as social, as he would be, of course, more melancholy due to him being kind of an Uchiha. We move on to his very first mission. One day while they were having breakfast, after Asta had, been there for a little bit and have been doing chores all around the hideout and everything like that, Asta would ask Captain Yami for a mission, and he would do this in a very Asta-like way, but something that still resembles an Uchiha, and something that still resembles a person that has the Sharingan. Asta would ask one of his seniors, what do Magic Knights even do? And then they would all go on about how Magic Knights protect the kingdom, and everything like that. And that's when Asta would see Captain Yami coming in to eat breakfast, and he would ask Captain Yami in a very rude way, in a very way that shocked everybody else, all of his seniors and everybody else. He would say, "Old man Yami, can I get a mission?" And just like that, Asta was given his first mission. Anyway guys, that'll be the end of the episode. I'm sorry to kind of blue ball you guys on this one, but I have to have some leverage for the next parts. I'm sorry that it's kind of short in terms of all the other episodes, but as you guys can see, I put a lot of effort into editing this, and I put a lot of effort into getting the story and the script right. So I think that's a fair exchange, length in terms of quality. Anyway, that's all for part 2. I know you guys are probably like, what? This is so short. Come on, give us more. But I kind of want to lead you guys on, so you guys have to watch, the next part. So yeah, if you guys want to see me continue part 2 and even drop another episode of this, you guys already know what to do. I will only continue this unless I get a great response, and I'm really having a lot of fun with this one, so I'm hoping you guys do give me a great response, because this is really a lot of fun. This Asta had the Sharingan is really getting a lot of fun. And like I said before, if you guys haven't checked out the Big Uchiha RP server, I don't even know what you're doing. It's 2020, come on guys, evolve. Hop on there, get in that server, start talking. And please, I really did spend a lot of time trying to get it ready, so I hope that it does perform well. Anyway guys, like I always say at the ending of all my videos, like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun jazz, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Yo, what's good everybody, it's me, Big Uchiha, and I'm back for another video. And I'm sorry that this one took so long. Me and my writer and I, Ricardo Zerith, we really had a lot of problems writing this and trying to get it perfect, and trying to get it to where my visualization of the series comes out in a script, which then I can read to you guys and add some editing into it to make it come out and make it really live. But we eventually got to a point where I think that the story is very respectable, and you guys will enjoy the hell out of this one. This is Asta had the Sharingan episode. Part 3. Where we last left off, Asta had just taken both his senpais in head-to-head combat. Magna and Luck were both pushed to using their final attacks on Asta, causing Asta to prep for a counterattack. Captain Yami, however, intervenes, stopping the clash in a single movement. Soon after, Magna takes Asta on a tour of the headquarters, even though Vanessa and the others have not properly introduced themselves. Magna shows Asta the dining hall, the main bath, the females' quarters, and the beast cage. Then, coincidentally, they meet up with a girl with silver-colored hair, Noelle Silva. Magna introduces her to Asta as another new member, just like him. Asta gives her a friendly introduction, but she coldly brushes him off. She then declares that a commoner like him should not speak casually to royalty such as herself. Asta is taken aback by this insult, and unlike in the original, he does not take insults well. He's a lot more prideful, and responds to this insult by saying, "If you really were a noble worth of your status, you wouldn't be a part of the worst squad ever." Hearing his reaction, Noelle becomes enraged and embarrassed, and in her angry fit, not knowing how to retaliate, she tries to subdue him with a magic spell. But she misses, and the attack lands on Magna instead. Asta immediately notices that there's something wrong with Noelle. As Noelle tries to justify her actions, she states that a noble can do what she wants and she doesn't have to apologize. Asta just tunes her out. He doesn't really care about what she has to say. He's more fixated on the fact that he is one step closer to accomplishing his goal on this day. Hearing all this, Magna remains unfazed and starts shouting at her regarding her admittance to this group due to Captain Yami's good grace. She then leaves the two of them while discarding her squad's robe. Asta, hearing all the yelling, finally says something. Leaning up against the wall, he looks up at Noelle, who's walking away now. His now cold black eyes look into hers as she turns around. He says, "You're a liar. The reason you're here is because you have no control of the energy flowing throughout your body. Noelle now stands there in shock. How did he know? Did Captain Yami tell everyone? With her finger pointed at Asta, she yells, "How do you know that?" Asta then says, "Anybody with basic understanding of how mana works can tell that you don't know how to use yours. You're stiff as a broom." What? Magna asks, "What are you talking about?" Asta then points up towards his eyes as he activates his Sharingan. He walks over to Noelle, then begins to look her up and down. Noelle is embarrassed and goes to slap Asta. He simply catches Noelle's arm, gripping it and looking into her eyes. He explains that his eyes allow him to see people's mana, even though he doesn't have any himself. Noelle's flow of mana has many flaws in it. It's curled up like a knot, while everybody else's flow of mana is very simple. It goes in one straight direction like a stream. He says, "Even though you have a lot of mana, you're not allowing it to flow properly." Noelle then screams, "Get off of me!" He continues by saying, "Meaning you'll always be unable to cast a spell that requires long distance control. Your mana comes out all twisted. There's no wonder." Noelle then holds back her tears and says, "You don't think I know that? You don't think I..." Noelle moved her arm intently till it was free of Asta's grasp, turning around to run away. Asta grabs her arms again and pulls her in towards himself. She stumbles and begins to fall, stares into her eyes with his Sharingan. That's when his one Tomoe evolved. His single Sharingan turned into a two Tomoe Sharingan. Asta had been doing intensive training for most of his life. It was only really a matter of time before this happened. Looking into Noelle's eyes, he casts a genjutsu on her by accident. This genjutsu forces her to face the truth. Memories of her family, the other nobles mocking her for her lack of control over her mana. This plays on repeat, and she loses it. Her mana creates a giant ball of water, which bursts through the hideout and heads into the forest. Her mana then engulfs itself around her, creating a massive ball of moving, pressurized water. Asta dodges the attack, but Magna gets trapped in it, and the attack knocks him unconscious. The incident alerts everyone inside. While the Black Bulls gather around Noelle in a panic, Captain Yami arrives and remains calm. He looks at Asta, who is now standing in disbelief of what he has just done, with his hand on his eye. Yami approaches Asta, putting his hand on his head, saying, "I knew there was something about you." "Captain," Asta says, "what do we do?" "Nothing," Captain Yami responds with. "If we try to neutralize it forcefully, it would cause more harm to Noelle." Asta grabs Magna's unconscious body and spins out of the water spell, and then breaks free. Yami catches them and immediately orders the rest of the squad mates to help Asta solve the issue by launching the newcomer who had caused this mess towards the sphere. The others look at Captain Yami with short faces. They grab Asta, who doesn't know what's going on, and fling him full force towards Noelle and her massive spell. Asta pierces the spell and swims to the center of the sphere where Noelle is. Asta looks at the rampaging Noelle and says, "Did I do this?" Asta slowly but surely fights against the pressure of Noelle's spell and just barely grasps Noelle's arm again. He pulls himself closer and closer to her, thinking of what he did, what he could have done. He talked about her power not having control, but he had no control of his. With tear-filled eyes, he looked into Noelle's eyes once more and entered the Genjutsu world, where he appeared and saw Noelle sitting in a black, never-ending space filled with memories. Memories of her childhood, memories of everything. He runs towards Noelle, but it seems like the closer he gets, the further away he becomes. "I'm sorry, Noelle. I'm sorry to my new squad. My captain." Asta, then with the sound of a flicker, appears behind Noelle. He had no idea what just happened, but he knew now wasn't the time for worrying about what he had just done. He gets down on one knee in order to be on Noelle's level. She had her hands in her face and was sitting on her knees. Asta looks around the black space and at the memories and the visions and says, "Is this why you can't control your magic?" Noelle, crying, says she doesn't know. She's ashamed of her flaw and has no right to have the pride of being a noble. "I deserve to be mocked by everyone," she says. Asta then says, "Do you really believe that? This squad is filled with nobodies, peasants, and weirdos. If you think your squad would mock you like this, if you think I, a nobody from Hage Village, would mock you like this, why wouldn't you?" Noelle says. That's when Noelle sees Asta crying, with the Black Bull members behind him, one by one entering the black space. Noelle lifts her head and reaches out her arm towards Asta, who says, "I'm sorry, Noelle, I really am." The Black Bull members had successfully neutralized the magic attack on the outside world, and when Noelle's hand touches Asta's with a blinding light, they arrive back in the real world. Noelle falls weakly, and Asta catches her, cradling her in his arms. She looks up to see Asta carrying her to safety. Anyway guys, that's the end of part 3. Before we start part 4, I want to give a message to all my supporters. I have crew accounts both on Instagram and Twitter, and both of them are at Big Gucci Taco with a 0 instead of an O. If you are interested in talking to me one-on-one in the DMs, or just want to know my interests outside of just videos, and you know what kind of anime I'm watching, what I'm doing at the time, what manga I'm reading, all that fun stuff, follow those accounts. And without further ado, let's move on to part 4. In some bits for part 0, where instead of Asta just randomly getting the Sharingan, we're gonna say that someone in the Black Clover universe ate a chakra fruit. This fruit would allow them to do amazing things, like magic. Asta, who was already born with the mutation of having no mana, would gain the ability of the Sharingan through mutation, as he was a direct descendant of the person who first ate the chakra fruit. Everyone else was teaming up and partnering up and all that stuff. Asta initially wanted to go against Yuno because he felt that if he was going against Yuno, he could really show all these other magic knights what he could do and really go 100%. But it seems that his brother had found a partner and Asta was left partnerless. That's when Seke would come around out of nowhere and he would offer Asta the chance to be his partner, show what I was capable of. I can finally go all out. The match would begin with Seke, just like in canon, creating a shield bubble and hiding in it, waiting for Asta to attack. Asta would let his grimoire come up to him slowly. He looked up once again at the captains. Asta then refocused. He activated his Sharingan, got in his stance, and burst off just like in canon, but this time even faster and even more explosive. The burst that he made created a large crater in the ground. His power level was probably twice that of what he was in the original right now, because he was training from a younger age, and with his Sharingan, it really helps him focus better and get the full potential of his strength out. So he one-shot Seke, but this time he was faster and stronger. Seke wasn't just knocked out, he had his shoulder ripped out of place, and it may never even be the same again. The crowd immediately quieted down. His eyes, his demeanor, his stance. Everybody in the crowd could feel his aura without even sensing his mana. It's very similar to what Captain Yami does, when you can just feel his ki and feel how strong combat. Magna and Luck were both pushed to using their final attacks on Asta, causing Asta to prep for a counterattack. Captain Yami, however, intervenes, stopping the clash in a single movement. Soon after, Magna takes Asta on a tour of the headquarters, even though Vanessa and the others have not properly introduced themselves. Then, coincidentally, they meet up with a girl with silver-colored hair, Noelle Silva. Magna introduces her to Asta as another new member. Just like him, worth of user status, you wouldn't be a part of the worst squad ever. Turning around to run away, Asta grabs her arms again and pulls her in towards himself. She stumbles and begins to fall, stares into her eyes with his Sharingan. That's when his one Tomoe evolved. His single Sharingan turned into a two Tomoe Sharingan. Cast a Genjutsu on her by accident. This Kamada creates a giant ball of water, which bursts through the hideout. Asta slowly but surely fights against the pressure of Noelle's spell, and just barely grasps Noelle's arm, where he appeared and saw Noelle sitting in a black, never-ending space filled with memory. Noelle lifts her head and reaches out her arm towards Asta, who says, "I'm sorry, Noelle, I really am." The Black Bull members had successfully neutralized the magic attack on the outside world, and when Noelle's hand touches Asta's with a blinding light, they arrive back in the real world. Noelle falls weakly, and Asta catches her, cradling her in his arms. She looks up to see Asta carrying her to safety. Part 4. Yami commends Asta for his performance while Noelle expectedly is humiliated yet again. However, to her surprise, Asta praises her for a large amount of magical power and motivates her to train on controlling it. Asta picks her up with his well-toned arm. She becomes red as a tomato as she slaps him in the face and gets trapped on her butt. The rest of the Black Bull members follow suit with compliments, with Magna giving her a pep talk, Finral trying to take her on a date, Charmy offering pastry to her, and Vanessa offering her assistance on training. While later, during a meal, Asta innocently asks Magna about the responsibilities of a magic knight, which incurs Magna's wrath for his ignorance. Magna explains that their job is to protect. Vanessa adds to it by saying it could be from a range of different things, protecting the peace or to being a bodyguard, while Lux simply says that magic knights are allowed to fight without restraint, especially against criminals. Gosh reveals that he became a magic knight to use his salary to spoil his little sister, and Charmy believes that the occupation allows her to eat best of various cuisine. Finally, Gray tells Asta that being a magic knight is a great job while transforming into Asta, and that really freaks Asta out. While Charmy offers Asta and Noel another dish, both of them agree that all their squad members are very odd. Soon after, Magna reveals to both Asta and Noel that their first mission would be boar hunting in Sochi village. Nami then explains that the request came in from an old man who managed to win on a bet against Yami and Magna. Hearing the excuse, the members try to get out of it, but complies immediately due to Yami's threat. Noel then starts grouching over the circumstance, but then reveals that she is just worried that she could inflict further damage with her lack of magical control. Magna immediately appeases her by saying that he will be along and he will be a supervisor, so you'll all be fine. He explains that they have to travel on a broom because Finwell's ability doesn't allow him to teleport to unknown places. However, to his dismay, neither Asta or Noel can ride a broom, which leaves Magna without a choice but taking them along with him on his broom. The crazy sight. First, Magna had a problem taking off due to the sheer weight of the passengers, but managed to fly in the end. Unfortunately, it was not very smooth, with Noel holding onto Magna tightly while Asta is ignoring his own safety as he is amazed by the experience. In the end, Magna exhausts himself upon their arrival at Sochi. Asta immediately practices genjutsu abilities on the boars, causing them to freeze, where he would take them down with his sword. He knew that this ability was dangerous. He would have to learn to control it to ensure that nobody ever gets hurt unintentionally again. Asta takes time out of his training to show Noel what she's doing wrong with her motto. She begins to blush as he stands behind her, aiming with her arms as a target. Using his Sharingan, he tries to help her correct the flow of her mana, but the mana backfires, sending him flying towards the village. Asta sees the village is covered by a very thick mist, with Noel seeing and believing that it was created by magic. Magna then subsequently asks Asta to cut it. Asta quickly does as he's ordered, after being convinced that his sword is able to cut any form of magic. At the end of the mist, they witness the villagers gathered at the center of the village, with dozens of sharp icicles floating above them. As those icicles start to fall down, Asta with a flicker manages to appear to where the villagers were, and manages to neutralize the spell with his sword. Magna then finds out that the old man who made the request was already dead, unfortunately. Subsequently, he sees the group of mages in the vicinity and immediately demands answers. One of the mages, Heath Grice, ignores him while being irritated by the Black Bull's interference. The man who was sitting at the top of a broken wall launches another attack. Defeated of his magical power, Magna is not capable of retaliating, but Asta manages to step in, cut the spell in half, and saves all of them. He then subsequently confronts Heath for his actions. Asta begins asking the group of mages for their identity, while Magna is considering the possibility of them coming from an outside kingdom. At the same time, the group of mages also question the appearance of the Black Bull Squad and explain that they are on an unofficial mission. Heath then looks at his pocket watch and declares that their defeat will be within 5 minutes before pursuing their purpose. Asta then begins his assault, but one of the mages quickly activates a mist-based spell. Asta quickly negates that spell while Heath analyzes him. When Asta asks of his purpose on the village, Heath evades the question by simply saying that the people who are from a forsaken region are nothing but brutes, that they are not worth saving. Heath's comments trigger a memory from Asta's past, where he learned something similar from Lily back in Hagen. His ambition to become a Wizard King began on that day, to protect the lesser people, which he reiterates to Heath. The group of mages then activate a composite spell of mist and ice, and manages to create a barrage of icicle spears. The icicles subsequently attack the villagers from multiple directions. Asta manages to flag a few of them, but Heath easily thaws them, leaving Asta and Magna on the defense to protect their villagers. Asta starts to lose even more magical power, but when he determines that he needs to continue to fight due to his pride. Noelle tries to launch an attack but misses her target, which leads Heath to comment on her flaws. At discouraged, Noelle begins to think about escaping, which is reinforced by Magna's quest for her to escape as well. But one of the children of the village approaches her and begs her for protection. Noelle regains her fighting spirit, and it triggers her grimoire to reveal a new spell that manages to protect all of them with a water-based barrier. Seeing an opening, Asta immediately rushes towards Heath and delivers a thrust to his torso. Unfortunately, Asta's attack did not manage to land significant damage on Heath, who reacted fast enough to freeze the ground, which dampened his momentum. He immediately lands on a counter attack and begins to freeze Noelle's barrier, while Asta is laying on the ground. As Heath proclaims he will finish the rest of them in 25 seconds, and Magna is nearly giving up. Asta comes back for another attack but is not fast enough to ambush Heath. Asta gets back up on his feet to only be sent flying once more. This leads to Magna beginning to reminisce about the moment he got accepted to the Black Bulls, while thinking that Asta should put this to rest. He'd ask Asta the very same question, which latter shows his determination and his duty to protect. Asta's statement awakens Magna from his slump, with him punching himself in the face. While leaving the protection duty of Noel, Magna comes out of the spell and challenges Heath. Magna fires a buckshot fireball. Heath fires off an icicle. The icicle stabs Magna, Asta, and Noel. Heath is hit by Magna's attack. Heath opens his eyes, looking directly into Asta's blood-red eyes, not knowing that Asta casts Genjutsu. He sees his allies with icicles in their legs and arms. As Heath loses consciousness, Magna quickly activates a restraining spell by taking advantage of the fire that is still burning on the opponent's body. Unfortunately, one of Heath's subordinates manages to escape by extinguishing the fire with a magic spell. While Noel also deactivates her spell, Asta suddenly faints due to exhaustion. Seeing Asta's efforts in the fight, Noel begins to see Asta in a different light, blushing as she silently compliments her. Suddenly, an anti-bird appears from Asta's robe and flies away towards one of the villagers' houses, where he finds a stone with a symbol of a crescent moon and 3 4-sided stars on it. The bird then takes the stone and returns to Asta's side. It then begins pecking on Asta's head until he wakes up. Noticing the stone on its break, Asta tries to return the said stone, which belongs to the village's chief, but the villagers later decide to give it to him as a sign of gratitude. Unbeknownst to Asta, Noel has been observing him and the anti-bird, as she had become enamored by Asta and the anti-bird's personality and behaviors. Moments later, Heath finally regains consciousness and finds himself and 2 of his subordinates tied up, hindered from using any magical spells by Magna's restraining magic spell. While he learned that Magna intends to turn him in for questioning, Heath tries to commit suicide by using a magic item which he kept inside of his stomach. Asta quickly casts a genjutsu on him, sending him to the same place as Noel and making him see all the memories of his life. Asta heads into the black space, where Heath reveals the Eye of the Midnight Sun, who appear to be very influential in the world. They are also powerful enough to almost rival the Clover Kingdom and possess many mages loved by Wano. They all despise the Clover Kingdom, and they are led by Licht. All the members speak highly of him and will never betray him. They even place seals to prevent any information from being leaked by other members. They are actively seeking out magic stones. Of course, Asta doesn't get all this information of the Eye of the Midnight Sun if you hadn't heard him before, but he does get a lot of information on Heath and on his position within the Eye of the Midnight Sun. He releases the genjutsu, and Heath comes to a realization of what Asta had just did and what he had just did, and that the fact that he is taken to either the Clover Kingdom or back to the Eye of the Midnight Sun, it would not end well for him. So he found a way to do it and committed suicide, while taking his subordinates along with him. Anyway guys, that'll be it for this episode. If you want to see more of this series, like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to turn those post notifications to always so you are informed whenever I make a post or drop a video. Go down there in the comments and theorize. What do you guys think is going to happen next? What's going on with Asta and Noel? And the new genjutsu ability seems really cool. Do you guys think Asta can master it? Anyway guys, like I said before, check out my Instagram and Twitter if you want to know more about me. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Yo, what's good everybody, it's me, Big Taco, back from the video today guys, and today I'm bringing you the long-awaited What If Asta Had the Sharingan episode 2. Where we last left off, Asta had just used the genjutsu and sent Heath, the villain attacking the village, to the same place that Noel was sent. Asta learns some secrets about the Eye of the Midnight Sun through looking at Heath's memories before Heath commits suicide right in front of Asta.
Asta! Asta, do you hear me? Asta!
Asta had seriously been shaken up by what had just happened. He thought he was in control, but he wasn't. A man had just died in front of him. Because of him, Asta had control of his mind when he did. Did he? Did he kill Heath?
Come on, Asta! Wake up! Come on!
Asta looks up at Noel. He was crying as Heath's dead body laid on the floor right in front of him. Noelle then moves closer to Asta, putting her arms around him, holding him tightly as he shakes profusely out of shock. Magna looks at this, looking on as Asta and Noelle embrace. Time passes, and Nick, the son of the man who sent the Black Bulls on this mission, then reminisces about his grandfather. His grandfather's past ambition of becoming a magic knight, and his grandfather's regret in not participating in one of the magic knight's entrance exams. Instead, he decided to focus on working at the village. Nick then asks Asta if someone from the Forsaken region like him could really enter the ranks of the magic knight. Asta then replies that he is a peasant who came from the Forsaken region as well, and he's a magic knight. Subsequently, Asta encourages Nick to work hard in order to achieve his goal. After hearing Asta's speech, the anti-bird pecks at Asta's head again. After completing their mission in Sochi village, the three of them return to the magic headquarters and are greeted by Yami and Vanessa. The latter reveals that the magic forensic division had just begun their investigation, although they had not seemed to find any clue regarding the attacker's affiliation just yet. Subsequently, Yami informs them that the magic wizard king got what they got out of Heath. Noelle, standing closely next to Asta, eggs him on to speak up about the information that he knows. Vanessa notices Noelle and Asta getting a little closer and decides to tease them a little bit, playing around with them. She says, "Look at you two. You're pretty close now, huh?" Vanessa then pokes her elbow at Noelle. Asta, who isn't really that naive anymore and isn't embarrassed about him and Noelle and their situation, yells, "So what if we are?" Noelle, who was now about to explode at Vanessa, now buckles at the words that had just come out of Asta's mouth and blushes out of embarrassment. She then goes back into her shell, wrapping her arms around one of Asta's arms. Asta stands there proud as Vanessa is just left stunned. Noelle is now too embarrassed to move and continually pushes up into Asta, making the situation awkward for even him, who just rubs the back of his head and laughs awkwardly. Yami looks at Magna and Finral with a face filled with pride and surprise, then turns back to Asta and laughs. "I didn't take you for such a ladies' man, Asta," Yami says. "Just so you know, team members aren't allowed to date." Captain Yami then suddenly gets serious, saying, "So you guys should cut that out right now." Asta then looks down at Noelle, who's holding his arm, and pushes her off him awkwardly, saying, Sorry, Captain. It's not really like that." Asta looks over to Noelle, who is now furious with rage. "Sadly, I think it's not, at least," he says with a glimmer of hope that Noelle will take him back. Noelle screams loudly, "Not in your wildest dreams, Bagasta. I never liked you anyway." She then turns around, walking away from Asta angrily. Asta looks at the captain, who is now laughing, and simply shrugs. "Women, am I right, Asta?" Finral says, relieved that Asta and he are now once on the same level relationship-wise at least. Asta goes on to help the forensics team and the Wizard King with the information he learned about the Eye of the Midnight Sun. The Wizard King then bestows the Black Bull Squad with 50 stars for Magna, Asta, and Noelle's excellent performance. The additional stars that they gained, counted to canon, put the Black Bull Squad only 49 stars away from the top squad, the Golden Dawn. Yami also distributes the members' salary, with Asta completely excited to earn his first money, while Noelle is not amazed about the amount she received at all. While congratulating the new members with their first salary, Vanessa also invites them on a shopping trip to the castle town in the Common region. Upon arriving at Kika, the castle town, Asta is yet again amazed by the scenes he had never experienced beforehand, and starts walking around ahead of the others. Asta notices a mugger and starts chasing after him, running around the market. His actions start to draw the attention of a crowd, who notice his affiliation with the Black Bull Squad. Additionally, Vanessa and Noelle try to attract an equal amount of attention, especially from the males. Vanessa tries to appease Noelle, who starts to worry about the commotion they're starting by saying that their presence as magic knights is enough to suppress the level of crime and activities, while hoping that she could also attract Asta. After completing their errands, Vanessa then takes Asta and Noelle to a black market, hiding behind a wall in one of the alleys of Kika. She then explains that nobles usually avoid such places after seeing Noelle's surprised look. Subsequently, she informs Noelle that they might be able to find an item in the market that could help her improve her control over her magical power. and also an item that could help her gain the attraction of Asta. While touring the black market, Asta notices an area of the market which is crowded, and it's revealed to be a casino. There, he accidentally sees one of his acquaintances, Magnus Swing, playing after receiving his salary. In the same casino, another mage is beaten in a game of cards by an elderly woman. The mage was Seke, who then starts complaining about his new life as a member of the Magic Knight squad, regarding his squad mate's treatment of him, and he starts complaining about his shoulder, and starts complaining about the problems that one kid gave him. Vanessa convinces Noelle to try a magic item to control her magic. She fires off a water ball, but it quickly flies towards Seke, smashing into his face. He then notices Noelle and Vanessa from across the room and immediately tries to flirt with them. Unfortunately for him, the two harshly reject him and insult him before Asta interrupts their conversation. Asta quickly recognizes Seke and intentionally fails to remember his name, mocking him by calling him Haha. See, Asta in this isn't really a dummy. He's smart. He knows the way to play the game and uses his knowledge to make fun of Seke. On the other hand, Seke is still shocked that Asta is able to be acquainted with two beautiful ladies. He then tries to criticize Asta, but it backfires when Asta reveals his recent accomplishment. In that moment, a thief snatches the belongings of an elderly woman who's gambling against Seke, the same thief that Asta was chasing before. Asta quickly pursues the thief while Seke activates one of his spells. Seke also starts pursuing the thief after giving Vanessa and Noelle a few sweet words, which gives the opposite of attraction to both of them. Asta, while using his superior physical abilities, chases after the thief, using his Sharingan to figure out which buildings he jumped to and from. Asta accurately throws his sword, which manages to nullify the thief's cloud while Seke stops the thief by crashing directly into him, laughing at him while he does it. The thief stabs Seke in the foot with a magic dagger, and Seke loses consciousness. Seke, who thinks he's about to die, starts giving his final wishes to Asta. However, Asta quickly rejects these so-called dying wishes and tells him to live and fulfill his wishes by himself. Vanessa then takes a look at the injury and reveals that Seke is not in imminent danger at all while applying some ointment to his foot. Seke then leaves with the thief tied up before he receives any further embarrassment. While Vanessa starts to notice the deeper personality that Asta has within him, the three Black Bull members then return the elderly woman's belongings before leaving the place themselves. As they leave, the elderly woman transforms into a middle-aged man who is then revealed to be the current Wizard King. He receives a call from one of his subordinates. The call seems to be an emergency, but the Wizard King remains calm, saying that he had found a candidate to solve the issue for him while looking at Asta. Meanwhile, back at the casino, Magna is still gambling. Even after losing almost all of his possessions, he's still determined on winning. A few hours later, as the Black Bulls are hanging out in the hideout, the group are not doing much. Asta is working out, and the others are trying to find a good name for the anti-magic bird on Asta's head. The group agree on Nero. A few moments later, Yami steps out of one of Finral's portals and approaches several of the Black Bull members of the squad who are hanging out and informs them about the emergence of a dungeon. The Clover Kingdom has discovered a dungeon. Hearing all that, the members become excited as Asta starts to show his ignorance regarding the existence of dungeons. Magna becomes pissed but still begins to explain to him that a dungeon is a place that contains a hefty amount of treasure, including magical items that are guarded by countless powerful traps. Vanessa then adds that due to the danger of the powerful magical artifacts landing in the wrong hands, it's the duty of the Magic Knights to conquer the dungeon for their kingdoms and secure the treasures. Noelle figures that if they know that must mean the Black Bulls are being sent on this dangerous mission. Yami then further explains that the dungeon has emerged on the border between the Clover Kingdom and a neighboring country, the Diamond Kingdom. Each kingdom wants that dungeon for themselves to get the magical artifacts within it. After hearing all the information, Asta quickly nominates himself for the mission, to everyone's surprise. Yami reveals that the Wizard King himself has asked Asta to go explore the dungeon, so he was going either way. Yami explains how he wants to see Asta use his Sharingan and his sword in action. Asta, however, only sees the Wizard King as a wall to overcome, and doesn't really like how the Wizard King is starting to, ease up onto him. You know what I mean? Yami tells Noelle to go with him so she can gain experience. Luck is told to go as well to sharpen his skills. Figma opens a portal and gets the dungeon as close as possible before getting the hell out of there. Asta then immediately travels to the dungeon along with 2 squad mates, Noelle and Luck. Vanessa is curious about the Emperor's awareness of Asta, but Asta simply says that their leader is weird. Additionally, the Black Bulls captains also assures her that Luck should be able to protect the new members, although he also remarks that Luck is slightly insane. After a brief walk in the dark due to Asta accidentally dropping their source of light because of Noelle's failed attempt to flirt with Asta awkwardly, the group finally reached the inner side of a dungeon. Luck and Noelle immediately remark that the dungeon is full of mana. Asta begins to use his Sharingan to see the mana. Luck pokes at the wall and creates an opening. Suddenly, Asta can see the traps, and after he easily nullified it with his sword, Luck suddenly pushes him into another trap. Asta swings his sword wildly, slashes a trap. Noelle screams at him for doing that. Additionally, Luck begins to activate several other traps. Asta slashes each one as fast as Luck triggers them. Asta and Noelle both think to themselves that Luck might get them killed. Luck stops and begins to praise Asta's high speed and anti-magic sword, as well as his Sharingan being able to see the possibilities of Luck doing all of this bullshit. Sensing the presence of others inside the dungeon, he quickly heads out towards the strongest person that he sensed, leaving the new members on their own. Noelle begins to freak out regarding Luck's pure insanity. Asta, using his Sharingan, looks out for a trap, not caring that Luck has a death wish. Asta proclaims that he'll become the next Wizard King, not Yuno, not Luck, not anybody else, so he doesn't care if Luck goes off and gets himself killed. Noelle just asks who's Yuno. Asta explains that Yuno is his brother, his rival, and the biggest obstacle to him becoming the Wizard King. A moment later, another plant-based trap spell suddenly entangles Noelle. Asta then quickly dodges another trap coming towards him and manages to release her by slashing the vines. However, another spell begins to strangle Asta. As he falls, a rain of swords fall upon him and Asta destroys the trap, but during that time, he could not stop all the swords. We switch back to the Black Bull headquarters. Yami informs Magna that several of the members of the Golden Dawn were also tasked to conquer the dungeon. We go back to the dungeon. When Asta and Noelle look up, seeing the swords come down at them, they're scared for their lives. We then see the appearance of the members of the strongest squad, the Golden Dawn. One of them is Yuno. The Golden Dawn members save the Black Bull members, and Asta and Yuno are now facing each other, face to face once again, delighted to be reunited. Unfortunately, Yuno's senior, Claus, doesn't really like the Black Bulls, so he interrupts them and asks his junior the reason for his action, saving the Black Bull members. Asta insults him by calling him Four Eyes. Claus remarks with a spark of confrontation between the nobleman and Asta. Furthermore, Mimosa Vermilion also starts a conversation with Noelle, who happens to be her cousin. While being passive-aggressive, Mimosa begins to boast about her group's achievement of a star at their previous mission. Noelle and Asta then cheerfully reveal their achievement as he got 50 stars, but Claus brushes all that off as a lie. Asta states that the Wizard King personally asked for him to join this mission. Claus continued to declare them as liars. Subsequently, Claus also asks the Black Bull members about their third missing team member. Both of them are unable to give an answer because Luck is crazy and he just went off to do some crazy stuff. We go to see Luck doing that crazy stuff. He's crushing through the dungeon, heading towards his target's location. When Claus begins to mock the Black Bull squad, Asta points his sword at Claus. Yuno points a sword of wind at Asta. Claus became enraged that this worthless Black Bull would threaten a noble such as himself. Asta realizes that Yuno won't let his teammate get hurt, so challenges Claus to a race to see which can reach the center first, the Black Bull squad or the Golden Dawn. Accepting the challenge, Claus orders Mimosa to scan the dungeon and for Yuno to create a vessel for the transportation. After the Golden Dawn members leave, Asta uses the Sharingan to look for the path of the quickest way to head towards the center of the dungeon. As they begin their encounter, many creatures of the dungeon start to attack them. Noel questions their method of choosing the path as he can't really sense mana, but Asta explains his Sharingan to her and how he uses it. At the same time, the Golden Dawn members are traversing through the dungeon towards the center when Claus begins to belittle the Black Bulls again. Yuno then reminds him not to underestimate Asta. He's not like the other mages on their squad, he says. Claus demands that he explains what he means. Yuno tells him that Asta has abilities. Strange abilities. Abilities that you wouldn't expect a peasant to have. Don't underestimate him. There's a reason I call him brother. In the meantime, at the royal capital, Julius receives a report that the Diamond Kingdom has sent a group of mages, led by a man called Lotus, to conquer the dungeon. While the rest of the attendants at that meeting are panicking, the Emperor is still confident in his knight's abilities. We switch back to Luck, who finally arrives at his target's position after defeating all of his target's subordinates. He challenges their leader to a fight while confirming that he is the target. After observing Luck's ability, Lotus, the man who was sent by the Diamond Kingdom, decides to escape, proposing another non-violent competition to conquer the dungeon. Unfortunately, his opponent is a crazy man called Luck, who charges at him. Lotus is able to dodge, and the battle between Luck and Lotus begins. Lotus tries to talk down Luck, explaining why his kingdom wants to invade the Clover Kingdom, but Luck, he doesn't really care about all that. He's just in it for a good fight, and he lands a few cuts on Lotus's face. At the other side of the dungeon, Asta and Noel are still trying to find the correct path, but are struggling due to the abnormal gravity in the room. Asta then notices a walking treasure chest that just passes them, and he immediately captures it. However, when they open it, all they see is the chest's internal organs. This is the craziness of this dungeon. The fight between Luck and Lotus continues, with the latter in a defensive mode. While observing his opponent, Lotus recognizes the robe that Luck is wearing as the Black Bull's signature robe. He then begins to reminisce about his fight with Yami and tells Luck about his defeat at the hands of the Black Bull's captain. The story quickly shifts as Luck starts to feel hazy. Lotus then reveals that he's been casting a weakening spell since Luck's arrival, as the boy loses control over his own body. The Golden Dawn members finally arrive at the center of the dungeon. As they're discussing it, Mimosa suddenly is ambushed, having a crystal stab her from underneath the place she was standing. Claus becomes shocked, not understanding how a crystal could have just stabbed her so badly if she was wearing a magic-resistant cloak, and she has great magical sensing abilities. When Claus demands the perpetrator to come out, Mars then reveals himself as he walks towards them and tells them to get out of his way. Lotus decides to leave, but Luck quickly gets up and tries to attack Lotus again after hearing his mother in his head, urging him to win. The fight continues with Luck releasing even more magical power. The Black Bull members then begin to reminisce about his childhood while living with his mother. Luck charges at Lotus. Lotus then decides to end that fight right there, as he restrains Luck with a smoke cross binding prison spell that causes Luck to lose a huge amount of magical power. At the center of the dungeon, Mosa activates a healing spell to heal herself. She apologizes to Claus for her mistake. He tells her not to worry and just to focus on healing herself. The Golden Dawn members then notice the diamond symbol on Mimosa's attacker's robe. They assume, obviously, that he's from the Diamond Kingdom. Mars then sends pillars of crystals at them. Claus creates a steel pillar to protect himself and his teammate, and a fight ensues between Claus, Yuno, and Mars. At the other side of the dungeon, Asta and Noel continue to go on the right path. However, Asta, using his Sharingan, senses two battles going on. One at the center of the dungeon, and another one, which Noel senses to be Luck. Asta suggests that they should go head there to go help Luck. Disagreeing, Noel reminds them about their objective and Luck's own decision to leave for his own agenda. Asta then decides if Luck is struggling, then an opponent he's fighting must be powerful. Luck's mind begins to drift as he inhales smoke. Returning to the center, the fight between the Golden Dawn members and Mars reached a stalemate, but Claus realizes that they're being cornered as the fight drags even longer on. He then orders Yuno to leave and to conquer the dungeon by himself. Yuno tries to reason with Claus, but ultimately decides to leave. Seeing an opening for an attack, Mars binds Claus's feet and launches an attack at him from behind. At the same time, after binding Luck with his spell, Lotus decides to put Luck out of his misery by beginning to suffocate him. Luckily, Asta manages to arrive in time to destroy Lotus's binding spell, throwing his massive sword at Lotus like a kunai, while Yuno decides to turn his back and save Claws from Mars's attack, disobeying his orders. They both think that they will never let their family or their teammates die. That's just not the way that these brothers operate. When Claws questions his decision, Yuno reminds him of another vow he made with Asta, where they would treasure their comrades like they care for each other. Additionally, when Lotus asks Asta about his relationship with Luck, he reveals that Luck is his friend, which is a similar answer to what Yuno gives about Claws when he's asked about his main priority on the mission. Sadly, after remembering his mother's funeral and the promise he made to keep on winning, Luck declines Asta and Noel's help. He then charges at Lotus, but the latter yet again evades him, trying to launch a counterattack. Luck fears being alone and not having his mother's love. That's why he goes so crazy. That's why he continues to fight. Asta immediately intervenes with Luck, and he says that they're comrades. Hearing it, Luck still doesn't change his mind and wants to defeat Lotus. However, Lotus decides to stop fooling around and traps all three of them inside of a thick veil of smoke. Meanwhile, Yuno finally releases the full extent of his magical capabilities. Claws is then taken by surprise when he realizes that Yuno has been keeping his strength a secret. As the latter activates two spells concurrently, Claws became impressed. Asta, being stuck by the smoke, staring at Luck, who is now really breaking down and going insane, decides on doing it. There was only one way he could escape. His sword was already thrown. It was laying on the ground, too far for him to even grab or do anything with. He couldn't use his grimoire. But Luck didn't even have to use his grimoire. He's just crazy. If he could figure out a way to release Luck from this spell, they had a chance of winning against Lotus. Asta does it. Even though everything's holding him back against it. Even though the last two times he used it, something seriously bad happened. He cast a genjutsu on Luck. Anyway guys, that's the end of the episode. What do you guys think is going to happen on the next episode? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think something bad will happen to Luck? Or do you think Asta finally manages to control his power in a way that doesn't harm Luck? Anyway guys, I'll see you in the next one. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz. Peace.
なんつうめちゃくちゃな天気。
What if Asta had the Sharingan? End of Dungeon Arc. Where we last left off, a mage affiliated with the Diamond Kingdom had the upper hand in an intense battle between Asta, Luck, and Noel. The Black Bulls were on the bad side of a crushing defeat, right when, at the last second, Asta activates his Sharingan to put Luck under a genjutsu in hopes of keeping him from passing out. We now flash to this point in time. Asta begins to put Luck into a genjutsu. That's when the black space opens up itself and Asta gets flashes of Luck's back. However, due to Asta being in this world twice before, it is much easier for him to navigate it, especially with what happened with Noel and what happened in Sochi Village with the guy from, the Eye of the Midnight Sun. You know what they say, the third time is usually the charm. So Asta looks at glimpses of Luck's past, and he discovers a new ability. He reaches out his hand and is able to scroll through Luck's memories, almost as if he was on a smartphone, just scrolling through the apps on the App Store, picking whichever one he wants to use and installing it into his own memory. Piecing together memories, he finds out all about Luck's past and decides to do the right thing. Luck's been through so much in his life. Everything with his mother, with him being, trained, killing nobles, and all that stuff. He glues together Luck's memories, fixing Luck's internal issues for himself, making Luck both stronger mentally and giving Luck a morale boost, which helps him physically. So he fixes most of Luck's past struggles, his inner turmoil. Lux hates himself and kind of drives himself into becoming this monster for killing because of what happened with his mother. And Asta realizes that, settles this entire thing for Luck, and tells him that you're okay. Continue going down the path you are going down. After he's done, Luck appears to him, saying thank you, as they fade out of the black space. As they return back to reality, Luck bursts out of the smoke, causing the mage that casts the ability to break focus. As soon as this mage breaks focus to deal with Luck charging to his left, he turns around, forgetting about Asta, who breaks forward and pummels towards the Diamond Kingdom mage's right. So, simultaneously, two powerful mages on his left and on his right. He can't move. There's nowhere for him to go. He could try and dispel some smoke, but that would just get easily brushed aside by Asta's anti-magic abilities. Asta breaks free, and Luck on his left and Asta on his right leads into a vicious combo punch. Meanwhile, all this is going down, Yuno has begun to engage with Mars, the leader of this Demon Kingdom squadron, a powerful mage. Unfortunately for Yuno, he is unmatched by the mage's raw power, but is using his skill and swiftness to make up and make this kind of an even match. However, it seems like the longer that the battle goes on, the stronger Mars become. Asta, Luck, and Noel finish tying up the enemy mages. When they hear the sounds of the battles and attacks of Yuno and Mars's battle sending vibrations through the dungeon, Asta immediately senses something is wrong as he looks over at his teammates and says, "It's the Golden Dawn." Asta, who is a lot smarter than in the source material, deducts that if they sent forces to the eastern part of the dungeon to fight us, then the southern part, where the noise is coming from, had to be the treasure room, as the Golden Dawn and the Black Bulls were in a race to go to each other to the treasure room. Asta then comes out of this with the information, telling Noel and Luck about everything he was, devising this. Noel is stunned to see how quick and decisive Asta is. He's kind of always been like that, even back in Sochi Village, but it seemed like he was getting better at it, like each experience was making him stronger. Asta then turned around saying, "Follow me," as he activated his Tutamori Sharingan. Using his Sharingan, he was able to follow the potent mana trail of this powerful mage. Luck and Noel were amazed to see that his weakness that they thought he had, the ability not to track or sense mana, was just being overridden by his powerful eyesight using his Sharingan. We now flash to Yuno as he struggles to keep up with the fight in Mars. Mars would close in on Yuno, grabbing him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. He would use his diamond shields to slowly inch his way into Yuno, causing a close quarter combat battle. Unlike in canon, where Asta would have already arrived, thanks to this prolonged battle he had with the Smoke Mage, Yuno was on his own. Mimosa and Claws were forced to step up even more than they did in the original nap. They both had already been badly damaged, but if you think they would lay down as Yuno was getting beaten, you're wrong. They fight as hard as possible, until Asta arrives. Asta arrives with Noel and Luck in tow, and the real fight would now begin. Arriving on the scene, Asta immediately sussed out the situation, using his vision to see the best plausible attacks on the villain mage. He burst out, and in the blink of an eye, he's in front of Mars. Time slows as Mars and Asta come face to face. I mean, they were so close, their noses could probably touch. Mars freaks out using his diamond magic to quickly put up a defense, but it was too late. Asta, who didn't have a sword out at the time, simply uses what he had at his disposal, landing a critical uppercut to Mars' chin with his hand, stunning the mage. Asta then backs up as Mars' diamond magic flops weakly on the ground beneath him. Asta looks behind him and calls out to Luck. "Senpai, now!" he yells, and Luck would move to grab the Golden Dawn members who had been injured. Mars would be hit drunk as he would back up. His vision would be blurred. Once Luck had saved all the Golden Dawn members, Asta withdrew his sword. Asta defeats Mars, slashing him. Mars is down, but not out. Asta is drawn by a strange force, same as Yuno. When Mars gets back up and slaps Yuno into a wall, bursting him into the other side. Just like in canon, Yuno is drawn towards an odd chest. Asta, however, goes back into attack mode. He goes in, fighting Mars, activating his Sharingan, keeping up with Mars, and being extremely fast. You think he was really fast in the original with his big hulking sword. Imagine him being even faster. So he was just pushing Mars back. However, Mars would get serious. It's not enough. Asta would attempt to use the black space genjutsu as Mars attempts to get serious using both of his magics, his diamond magic and his fire magic. But Asta fails as his Sharingan throbs and his head gets in extreme pain, causing his Sharingan to deactivate. He isn't able to activate it, and the pain from trying to activate it affects his fighting, causing him to get critically hit by Mars. Juno comes out, powered up like Rinnegan, however, at the last second to give Asta a little bit of a rest. So Juno fights. Meanwhile, Asta stumbles upon something in the dungeon as the Nero, or the anti-bird, guides him. He opens up a strange container, and inside of it is the Demon Dweller sword. Inside the container, however, there is something more. An ancient scroll written in language that Asta does not understand. Next to it was a jacket with the Uchiha clan symbol on it. Show everyone, I probably sound different because this is editing Gucci here, and I'm just here to give you guys a little message about what's going on with the video and what's happening with my channel. So, the reason that this video is 25 minutes long, as you guys can tell, and not the original stated 45 minutes long, and the reason that this video took so long to come out and I haven't been active is because I almost quit YouTube. I accidentally deleted all of the downloads on my computer, which means I lost everything. I lost all the files I used to make all the videos that I was making at the time and that I'm continually making, and I lost all the files for this video. That's the reason that I decided to just cut the video in half so I don't have to recreate the entire thing, and I can recreate bits and import bits of pictures and video and just try to recreate it as best from memory as I possibly could. Because if you guys didn't know, I've recreated this video 3 times. This is going to be my 4th time, so it kind of feels like, 3 times and you're out. But I do want to post this, at least half of the video, or at least some of the video, because I think it's a really good video. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, but that's what's happening. I almost quit YouTube because I deleted pretty much everything on my computer, like an idiot by accident. I don't want to hold you guys up for too long. I'm just going to say, comment on the video please. I just want to talk to some of you guys, and I will be streaming tonight when this video goes up. I just want to talk to you guys and just continue making content, because that's the thing that makes me really fun. That's the reason I do this, just so I can interact with people who love anime as much as me. And if you do, you guys already know my Discord is down there in the description. Hit me up on Discord. We can talk about anime, work on some what if together. I don't mind at all. And hopefully I'll stream later tonight on YouTube so we can talk. If not, I'll probably stream this weekend, and if not, expect to see a lot of videos, because I'm just gonna start spam posting videos. Just expect to see a lot of them just dropping. What if Ben 10? I'm probably gonna have to recreate that from scratch, but that's definitely gonna be dropping in like this week. As soon as this video drops, I'm just gonna start spamming videos. I don't want to hold you out for too long. That's just all I gotta say. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll catch you in the future. Peace. Asta sees this and is drawn to the item. Of course, Asta does not know what this symbol means, but he's still drawn to it. He hears Yuno fighting and bursts out with the Demon Dweller. His head is still throbbing in pain, and he's still not able to activate his Sharingan. So he goes straight on OG Asta with the Demon Dweller. Noel would of course assist him, and that's when he found out that the Demon Dweller could use magic attacks from his friends, and he could send anti-magic slashes towards Mars. Yuno and Asta would be enough to put away Mars, just like in canon. However, they would go through a lot more pain doing it, just because, Asta used the Black Space Genjutsu before, and he tried to activate the Genjutsu again. It really hurt his head. However, they were able to get the job done. The Black Bulls and the Golden Dawn then begin to heal up, as the battle comes to a close. After this, we all know that Asta gains the respect of Claws, and gains the admiration of Mimosa. So that happens a lot like in canon. However, you can imagine that Asta with his cool Uchiha-ness is kind of playing into Mimosa liking him. Noel is jealous about this and doesn't like this one bit. Shino praises Asta's power and his control over both his Sharingan and congratulates him on unlocking a new sword. Leaving the dungeon, Juno and Asta would talk to each other once more. The brotherly bond that they had was not broken. They were still together in this, no matter what. However, they were both still rivals, and they both wanted to sit atop the crown and become the Wizard King. Claus would laugh at these two rivals going at it. He never really thought much of Asta, but now seeing him coming up against Yuno like this kid is really special. He maybe could do it. I mean, if Yuno wasn't there. They'll all laugh as the Black Bulls and the Golden Dawn split ways. Right when they're about to leave the dungeon, however, Noelle suddenly hugs Asta. She's crying and she looks up at him. Asta looks down confused, but then he smiles. He pats her head and they walk out together. Frenwell then appears with a portal, and as soon as they walk through, they are greeted with the Black Bulls eating. They were all celebrating Asta and the gang returning. During the celebration, Charmy, who is just Charmy, innocently comments on Noelle and Asta as they were holding hands. Noelle freaks out hitting Asta, saying,
Me and Asta? Never!
However, later that night, while everyone is asleep, Asta would sneak out into the common area. He couldn't sleep. However, he hears something. It was Noelle. She was outside practicing her magic. Asta watches for a little bit before he decides to go outside to talk to Noelle. Noelle awkwardly says hi as her magic flops over in embarrassment as Asta approaches her kinda slowly. After what she had done earlier, she felt really bad because she was afraid of facing her feelings for Asta. Asta knew this, and he could decide, he could tell that Noelle was kind of embarrassed and awkward just because she's an awkward person. Asta would approach her,
And we fade into a new day, never to see what happened between them.
the Royal Capital arc. Of course, just like in canon, we all go to the Royal Capital with, of course, Vanessa, our favorite senpai. At least she's my favorite senpai for some obvious reasons. But right before she's about to go, that's when Captain Yami appears before them, saying, if you guys are going to the capital, you might as well come with me too, because we need you on urgent business. The Wizard King has summoned all the captains. Asta's eyes now pop out of his head. This is his first chance to meet the Wizard King. Remember, he's a little boy from Hage, so he never knew anything about the Wizard King. I mean, he knew that he existed, but he had no idea what he looked like, what his power level was, and how hard it was to be the Wizard King. So getting to see the Wizard King in person is something that Asta would never take for granted, and it's something that he would use because him now being an Uchiha, he would be a lot smarter, like explained and like demonstrated. So him being able to see the Wizard King face to face up front and kind of have a conversation with him to suss what kind of person the Wizard King is out is an incredible opportunity for Asta. Asta will look up towards Yami with an excitement in his eyes. His eyes glared. They were black and solid, staring back into Yami's deep brown eyes. And Yami knew. He shook his head and scrubbed off and played with Asta's hair. It was really weird, but they together had that solemn moment where they clicked, Asta saw, and Yami saw it. They really like each other. Noelle is looking at Asta and Yami and even gets jealous by this interaction. She's such a jealous person, she can't even deal with Asta and his captain chilling out and having a little moment together. Before she starts whining and calling Asta Bagasta, slapping him on the head, she walks away. As Fenrir opens a portal, she walks through it, directly to the Royal Capital. She has returned again, and as soon as she walked through it, she kind of took the weight of her decision for granted. She hadn't been back there since she joined the Black Bulls, and now seeing it in person after a couple of months is really daggering.
It takes her back to the times when her family would, of course, treat her differently just because she was the firstborn and the one that killed her mother. Little did she know, however, her brother was doing that to protect her, to make sure she never became a strong enough magic knight that she would be put in harm's way. So, of course, she doesn't know all that, so she goes about her day in the royal capital a lot like canon. Asta would arrive, and unlike in canon where Asta immediately begins goofing off with everybody else who was at that summit, he stands calm and waits for his captain to come out the portal. Standing on the right-hand side, when Captain Yami comes out, he almost looks like the vice captain of the Black Bulls. He walks up right behind Captain Yami as they sit down together, and the summit begins. But before the summit begins, Asta gets into a little bit of trouble. I mean, nothing like he would in canon, standing up and declaring himself to be the one who would become the Wizard King. He simply got into a little spout with a noble. A noble would come out and say, "What are you doing here, peasant? You and your black bulls, you're filthy animals. I can't believe you were even called up to the summit. You shouldn't even be able to call yourselves magic knights." Asta is a lot more of a calm person. Doesn't stand for this bull, though. He simply glares over at this man, activating his Sharingan, scaring the hell out of this weird noble. Of course, this noble would have to go ahead and get the backup of his friends, which were all members of the Purple Orca, one of the Magic Knight squads. And they all tried to press Asta, but standing right next to him was Captain Yuno. If they were gonna go up against Asta, they were gonna have to go up against Captain Yami, which was a genius move by Captain Yami. However, he wouldn't be able to stay by Asta and keep him babysat the entire time, as just like in canon, the captains were called away separately from the rest of their little squad members. Of course, Asta would be called up, like in canon, and like in canon, after he is being dismissed from the Wizard King, he goes about his day in the capital. He thinks about him being the Wizard King, and thinks about the kind of man the Wizard King is. When he met the Wizard King, he spoke so fluently and eloquently, and also, he made sense. He didn't try to be all over the top and grandiose. It was almost like he was a regular person and not the Wizard King. Of course, the Wizard King had come from noble descent. I mean, he could tell all that much by the cut of his jib, but by the face value of his character, the Wizard King seemed like a stand-up guy, a decent man who, by no fault of his own, is trapped in this amazing position of power. Asta susses out all this from one simple interaction with this man. When I tell you he's beginning to tap into his hidden genius, I mean, he really is. After all this, Asta would of course be wandering around the capital, just securing the area, doing some Magic Knight stuff, when the Eye of the Midnight Sun would attack, and zombies would be on the loose all across the royal capital. Asta, who would notice fires flaring up and popping off, and the sounds of people screaming, would run towards Noelle, who was scouting out in the area right next to Asta, and he would see her in trouble. Asta would burst off immediately, unsheathing his sword, slashing an enemy zombie, cutting it in half, and saving Noelle quickly. However, they were all surrounded by all sides, so Asta couldn't take a rest to talk to Noelle. He immediately got to slashing and cutting. Activating his Sharingan, he picked up his speed, but it still wasn't going to be enough for these massive numbers. Asta was going to have to pull a serious Madara versus, the United Ninja Front if he wanted to get rid of all of these animals. I mean, these zombies were ruthless. So, just like in canon, Asta would be getting taken down. He would be going up until Captain Frugillian appears.